know is this is an update on the murder of the small infant that was born. And, it really isn't much change since the original press conference on Friday. What I can confirm for you is that she stayed in the bathroom cleaning up the blood using paper towels and wash towels from the birth of the baby until the baby died. And she did tell us that she was hoping that the baby would hurry up and die. It's a very tragic case. It's a tragic case for the family, frankly for the mother. Very tragic and emotional investigation by our team. And more importantly, here's a small, not even, a few minutes old, really, baby that likely could have lived, that frankly drowned to death. And so the ME has confirmed that the cause of death, preliminarily, still we don't have the final report from the ME, was that the baby died from drowning. The baby also had an abrasion on her head, which we believe is from the birth and the baby falling into the toilet as a result of the birth and hitting her head. And so no changes in the charges. We are still investigating this case. We are serving search warrants on digital evidence to see if there was any attempt to obtain information on birth or how to dispose of a child. We don't know the answers to that yet. That is still being done by our digital forensics unit. So could charges change? That we will give all the evidence that we have been able to collect to our state attorney, and our state attorney will make that decision at some point in the future. So it's still aggravated manslaughter at this point. Just a very, very tragic and frankly sad case. Probably one of the saddest cases I've seen in my entire career, which is now 51 years.
Sheriff, I know this was asked on Friday, but can you clarify again why this is manslaughter versus murder?
It's based on the evidence that we have at this moment. That's why I said with digital forensics, that could change once we have more evidence. She tells us that she did not know she was pregnant. We don't necessarily believe that, but we need to be able to prove it. Our opinion doesn't matter in criminal cases, so we personally think she knew she was pregnant based on some of the evidence that we have between text messages. And so, but we need to prove that, in a criminal case beyond a reasonable doubt. And so if we find that there's other evidence out there that could escalate this case, then I'm sure our state attorney will do that. The reality is that while it's manslaughter, it's not the a homicide charge or a murder charge. The penalties in many cases are very similar in there. So we shouldn't get just hung up on what the charge is. To be a first degree, we'd have to prove premeditated. I don't think that's going to be there based on what we know of the case at this point. But could it be a second degree? Maybe. That's just speculation. At this point, we really have to see what everything is that we find. Our CSI was there. We used luminol on the bathroom floor to try to verify the story we were being told, and it did indicate the presence of blood that had been there. And you can imagine if you've been around a birth, there's usually a significant amount of blood from the placenta and just that event. And so we know that she spent the time cleaning up the bathroom while the baby was dying. And it's just a tragic case.
What is her mental stat? Does she seem all mentally there? Does she know does she seem to know what happened?
Well, I have not talked to her. My detectives obviously have, and her mental state seems fine, from all indications that I have been told. She clearly knew what she was doing. She clearly knew that she had given birth. She says she did not know she was pregnant. We don't necessarily buy that part of the story. But for the most part, the evidence has supported what she has said, with probably that exception. And once we get all the digital forensics, and that takes time to not only download and do a forensic autopsy on the digital electronic equipment, but then to analyze it. So it takes time to do that.
How long do you think the baby was alive for? Like just a couple minutes, or?
Well, I'm not the ME, but what I can tell you is that based on the preliminary ME's report, she clearly was alive long enough to inhale water from the toilet into her lungs. And that's why the preliminary autopsy says cause of death is drowning. So we know from her statements she was alive because the baby was crying. And so we know she was born alive, and then ultimately stopped moving, stopped crying, clearly died. I'm sure it was a few minutes, but it wasn't like an hour.
Looking at all aspects, if there could be any other charges with anybody else, talking to anybody else during that period. I know there was the.
You mean like an accomplice charge or anything like that?
I don't know. Should we
Well,
call or ask somebody, what should I do? Should we?
Well, that's
do you know
what.
who the father is or anything?
So we don't have the information on the father at this point. What I can tell you is that that's part of the digital forensics to see what communication was going on. We do know that she was talking with one individual that called us for their welfare check, and there is text communication between both of them. We're not going to release it yet because it's still active part of that investigation. But we know that at least one person she communicated with, and frankly, they did the right thing. Once they found the text messages, they immediately notified us.
And then she went and performed in a play that same night, right? Is that part correct?
Well, yes, that is correct. I don't know what she did. I know she went to something in Daytona to that. So I don't know her, college degree or exactly what she was doing. But again, very, very tragic case. I guess God needed a little small baby up there, and hopefully, I'm sure God is in His angels are giving her a lot of love and comfort that she didn't get on this earth, and it's just tragic. I just can't imagine any mother doing that, because in this case, the suspect wouldn't be here if her mother did that. It just is mind-boggling to me that someone could do that. I have two adult girls myself, but it's just, and I got 3 grandkids, and thank God none of that happened to them. So I can't imagine what the family is going through. And I think she did, from what we can gather, at least at this point, she did hide her pregnancy from the family. But I think we all know how the female body works to a degree, right? So when you don't have a certain thing monthly, there's an indication something's going on. So, but we have to prove that. And so, that's what's still going on in this investigation. Okay.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.